Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Disney Dining Show. I'm your host, Pete Werner, coming to you from my office here in Orlando. Also joining us via Skype right now, Sean Falk.
Hi.
And producer Corey Fiascanaro.
Hey, everybody.
So, yeah, this is fun. Doing it like this. We want to do our review of Takumi-Tei, the new restaurant at the Japan Pavilion at Epcot. Sean and I had a chance to experience it like 140 years ago now, which I think was actually just like last month. But I didn't know what to expect. I didn't read or hear a lot about it other than that it was expensive, and that it's clearly a signature dining experience. This restaurant is kind of located... It's very kind of obscure. It's downstairs alongside the Mitsukoshi department store, off to the side in the back corner. As you're facing the pavilion, it's on the ground floor to the right. But when you walk into this place, I mean, they did an incredible job. And the restaurant is themed around the elements. So you have a room that is water, wood, earth, stone, and paper. And the decorations and the art in the rooms all kind of reflect that. And it's absolutely beautifully done. When we went in, there was not a lot of people in the restaurant. I think, A, a lot of people don't know about this restaurant, and B, I think between the price and the menu may put some people off. I don't know. What do you think, Sean?
This was my second time actually getting to go in. I went in on opening day. They did a soft opening before it actually opened, and I happened to be at Epcot just personally. And they were giving tours of the restaurant and showing a few different of the menu items and everything. So I got to do a tour then, and so they did the whole spiel of like how it was all about the elements of Japanese art and crafting. So those are all the materials they use in art in Japan, and they killed it as far as the decor and the theming and everything. It really felt like I stepped out of a Disney park and into a very, very nice and very authentic type of Japanese restaurant. Even when Pete and I were in Japan, I remember at one point we ate lunch in a subway station, and even the inside of that restaurant, while not as upscale as this is, it had that same feel. So having been to Japan, it was pretty authentic inside.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely, you can't help but be impressed by the atmosphere. And what I know, like what struck me was that you kind of went from the crazy of the park into this very serene, quiet restaurant. I mean, it just was so relaxing. Mm-hmm. In there. Now, I don't know what it's like when there are more people in it. We were there in the evening, and this is not a dining experience where you're going to be rushed through your meal. You really should set aside 2 hours at least, for your meal, because they're going to pace it a certain way. And I was impressed. But then again, for what they're charging, because make no mistake, this is signature dining. So let's talk about, I just want to kind of go over the menu and what's available on the menu. They do have a tasting menu. Unlike most tasting menus, this one does not include a wine pairing. You can get a wine and sake pairing for an additional $75 per person. The tasting menu itself is $150 per person, and it is 7 courses. Starting out with a toshi, which is, I don't know what that is exactly, but it's imagined daily by the chefs, it says. A tamari sushi, which is a chef-selected assortment of oceanic delicacies. Nakomi wagyu, roasted bone marrow, braised Wagyu short rib, and other words I can't pronounce. Then there's a palate cleanser, word I can't pronounce. And then there is an actual Wagyu strip steak. This is a Japanese A5 Wagyu strip steak paired with an American Wagyu strip steak, roast cipollini onions, curried potato, seasonal mushroom, fresh grated wasabi, and other things I can't pronounce. Followed by shizuku, water cake, yuzu crumble, black grape, blackberry sake, and a tea ceremony. We did not do the tasting menu. I just kind of wanted to go through it. We did have the Wagyu, and we're going to talk about that in a second. I'm not sure how much Wagyu they give you on this, and obviously it'll be the same Wagyu we enjoyed. But at that $150 suddenly becomes a very good deal when you look at what they're offering, and they're including both the American and Japanese Wagyu in that. And then, like I said, for another $75, and additionally, there is a wine and sake pairing that go along with the first, second, third, fifth course and dessert. So I guess the only thing they're not giving you is a wine pairing with your palate cleanser. So the appetizer menu, and again, I think one of the challenges this restaurant is going to have is its approachability in terms of the menu, right? We are not, I'm not saying, I'm going to speak in broad generalities, but generally speaking, we are not an adventurous people when it comes to what we eat. This was a problem Epcot had when it first opened with a lot of these restaurants, that the restaurants were extremely authentic to their cultures, and people weren't eating there because it just wasn't approachable. But so this menu, miso on the appetizer menu, miso, which is silken tofu, scallion, and toasted nori at $10. Katsuo dashi, bonito broth, white rice, furikake, I think I'm pronouncing that right, and toasted nori is $12. So I'm not going to go through the entire menu that way, but you get the idea that even when they're giving the explanation of what this is, mushroom broth, baby shiitake, white rice, okay, exactly, I'm not sure what this dish is. So it's kind of, unless you're really adventurous. Sean's a lot more adventurous than I am with that stuff. Do you remember what I ordered?
As far as your appetizer, I remembered mine. I had thought you got the Takumi Wagyu, which was that roasted bone marrow, but maybe you didn't. It's roasted bone marrow, braised Wagyu short rib, and the yuzu kosho. Whatever.
The $29.
Sure
$20 dish. I think I did get that, but the only reason I thought I'd made notes and I didn't, or I did and I lost them.
We started and then we stopped.
Roasted bone marrow. I'm out. That is just I've tried it once. I've tried bone marrow once, and I vowed I would never do it again. But I might have overlooked it to try that Wagyu short rib, and I do remember not being overly impressed with my appetizer. I do remember that. That particular dish is $29.
That's an appetizer.
And that's the appetizer. That's the appetizer. Appetizers range from about $10 up to $29, but you have, ponzu crab, toasted crab, heirloom tomato, watermelon radish dish for $26.
I haven't been to Takumi-Tei yet, but just like if I was going there, and I don't recognize a lot of the things on that menu either. The miso soup, though, I haven't had it, I haven't seen it, but that's if you ever been to Hibachi. A lot of times the soup that you get as a starter at hibachi is that miso soup. It's very brothy with just a few like scallions and mushrooms inside of it. Just a nice little start to your meal.
And what did you have, Sean?
I actually went with sushi instead of an appetizer. So they do have they have 4 main sushi rolls, and then they have sashimi and nigiri as well if you want to get that. I got the aburi wagyu sushi. It's $26, and I believe it had 8 pieces. It was either 6 or 8 pieces, but it was the Japanese wagyu beef. It had asparagus in it, shiitake mushroom.
I remember tasting that. That was really good.
Yeah, cured duck egg yolk and warashita, which I remember asking about, and they said that it was a like a sauce or a spice that was on it. It was very good though. Even then, I guess maybe like cured duck egg yolk might be off-putting to some people. I thought that was very good. I don't think it was anywhere close to as good as the entree ended up being. It wasn't the best sushi I'd ever had in my life, but it was good. I actually prefer the sushi at California Grill better than the sushi I had there. So if you ever had it at California Grill, you know what I'm talking about.
I did find a note about my appetizer. I got the Kanoko dashi, the mushroom broth, with white rice, toasted nori, that was $12, and I made a note that it was very good but surprisingly earthy. And I remember now, it was good, but it had this earthy flavor to it that was almost kind of, I know this doesn't sound appetizing, but it really wasn't bad, but it was almost dirt-like.
Yeah.
When I say earthy, it kind of had that, like, okay, you mixed in a little bit of, you were working on the bonsais and you threw some dirt into this to spice up the dish. I don't know.
I remember that now because when you were reading through the stuff, I was like, that sounds like something I would have ordered. Why did I not get that? And I do remember you got it, and that's why I was like, oh, I'll just try some of yours. And it was, to me, I really liked it. But you're right, it was very earthy, field tasting kind of. So it was very, very like the earthiest thing I've ever had before. Yeah, it was good though.
So the appetizers were good. I'm not going to say the appetizers were, oh my god, because they weren't. Mine at least. I thought Sean's was quite good.
Mine was very good.
Yeah. But it wasn't until we got to the main course that this restaurant took on a whole new level for me. They have different types. They have 3 different Wagyu dishes on their main course menu. A Japanese A5 Wagyu tenderloin with leek sauce, warashita, curry potato, seasonal mushroom, $120. And I just want you to know this is about 4.5 ounces of beef for $120.
Can you tell some about what Wagyu is, just for people that like don't know what they're paying for with Wagyu?
Wagyu is a type of beef that is is bred in very strict conditions. Only a certain part of Japan, I believe, where this beef is farmed, and there's a very I don't know all the specifics other than to say that not just anybody can do Wagyu beef. There are specific farms, specific cows, specific ways that they are raised. There are ways that they are butchered. So that's what drives this price. It's not something that's in abundance the way, a New York strip is here. Yeah. But it's an incredibly tender, flavorful steak. And I've never had any bad Wagyu. I've had really good Wagyu, I've had phenomenal Wagyu, and then I've had life-changing Wagyu, and it was life-changing Wagyu that I had here. And we'll talk about that in a moment, but I just want to go through the other 3 that are offered. There's a Japanese A5 Wagyu ribeye and an American Wagyu strip steak. Now, on the tasting menu, you'll remember that they had a dish where it was the Japanese A5 Wagyu and the American Wagyu together, and isn't that what you did, Sean?
I didn't. I actually got them to do. I wanted all the side dishes of the American, but I wanted to try the traditional Japanese. So I got the Japanese A5 Wagyu tenderloin, but I got it with the American, which is called Gift of Ranch, is the name of the. They have a Japanese name too, but Gift of Ranch is the name, and it came with purple sweet potatoes, roasted maritake mushrooms, and fresh wasabi root. And I don't go spicy, so it definitely. I was worried about the wasabi root, but it was not spicy at all. It blended well with everything. So.
And I did the A5 Wagyu ribeye, which was 115. Sean's was, if he'd just done the American Wagyu strip steak, that dish is 85. But I believe yours was closer to 120.
It was 120 because I still got the steak. They just changed the side items.
Changed the sides. So, there are a couple of standards I have when it comes to steak, right? I want to taste the steak without anything on it, right? No seasoning of any kind. Sometimes they're, cooking steaks with a rub on them or something, it's unavoidable. But you really want to kind of taste the flavor of the steak. I was surprised because with a Wagyu steak, and again, I'm no expert on Wagyu, but anyone I've ever had has never been seasoned. This one was. And I was a little put off by that because normally you only season a steak heavily. Well, I wouldn't say this was heavily seasoned, but you only season a steak when you're trying to cover up the fact that it doesn't have a lot of flavor, right? Really good steak is not going to be crusted. It's not, I shouldn't say never, but a lot of times when you go places, if there's an awful lot of stuff on that steak, they are covering up the fact that it's not a good cut. That was not the case here. This had a seasoning to it that defied description at the time, and I certainly can't go back to it now. It wasn't potent. It wasn't like overly seasoned by any. It was just enough, and it complemented the natural flavor of the steak in a way. It was a blend that I've just never experienced before. But then you put this in your mouth, and I'm not kidding. It melts in your mouth. It is so tender. And $115 for a steak, and then you put it in your mouth, go, yeah, $115 for a steak, okay. And again, you're looking at 4.5, 5 ounces, I think it was. So it's not massive by any means. Not massive by any means. But now you did the tenderloin, and I will tell you, I didn't try your steak, but I did try your
sides. The
sweet sides.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
That was among the best things I've ever eaten in my life.
Yeah, I knew I needed to. I wanted to try the Japanese traditional style because we had Wagyu in Japan and I loved it so much, and I was like, I want to eat that again for sure. But if you ever gone out to Aulani in Hawaii, one of the appetizer options at Ama Ama, which is their signature restaurant, they have a trio of mashed potatoes, and so they have regular mashed potatoes, sweet potatoes, and they have purple sweet potatoes. And that was the first time I'd ever seen purple sweet potatoes before, and I loved it. I thought that it was the best potatoes I'd ever had, and I've never seen anywhere else that had the purple ones. And so once I saw it on this menu, I was like, well, I have to somehow get these purple sweet potatoes on my plate to see how good it's going to be. And I mean, my steak, you could have cut it with a fork. It was, I order medium rare. So, but I'm sure had I done well done or something, they would have been able to do amazing with it as well. I mean, I wouldn't have done that, but a lot of people like well done. So you could have cut it with a fork.
Looking at you, Fiasco.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you could have cut it with a fork, and it was so phenomenal.
Oh, we did. We did cut it literally with a fork.
Yeah, I mean, when they brought it out, I was worried that it wasn't going to be enough because, I mean, here we're so used to getting like 8 ounces or even 6 ounces, like the small somewhere. So I'm like, okay, 4.5 ounces. Like, this is not going to be a lot, but it was so satisfying of an amount. Like, I wasn't overly full. I was just like, I'm pleasantly full, and who knew that I could be eating less and be, better feeling after.
And that was a surprise for me as well, that, none of the portions here are particularly large, right? It's not traditional in Japan to serve massive portions like we do. And as I had the same thing when I looked at the steak came out. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be hungry. I'm going to be hungry when I leave here. And I wasn't. Between the appetizer, the main course, and then what we tried for dessert, I walked out not feeling disgusting, but feeling very satisfied, which is important when you're going to spend this kind of money on a dinner. And like I said, that steak, that was a game changer. That steak was a game changer. I mean, we just sat there and going, "Oh my God, I can't believe what I'm eating." That's how good it was. And I've had Japanese Wagyu before. As Sean mentioned, we were in Tokyo, we had it. And it was extremely good there. But I think it was a combination of A, the way it was seasoned, B, the choice of sides. I did not care for my side dishes as much as I did for Sean's. Those purple sweet potatoes, I don't know if they were sprinkling crack in that stuff or what.
It was so good.
But it was like, can you bring me a bucket of this with a spoon? And just give me a dark corner and some Barry Manilow, and I'm a happy guy. Because it was unbelievable how good it was. So that was a really good mix between the Wagyu tenderloin and the sides from the American Wagyu, the Gift of Ranch dish, because the Wagyu tenderloin is the artisan beef. That's $120. The one I had is called the Cattleman's Harvest, and that was $115. And then the American Wagyu one is the Gift of Ranch, and that's $85. So no matter even just one of these, you're looking at, close to $100.
Right. They do have 4 other entree options if you don't want to, if you don't eat steak or if you don't want to jump into those price points. So they do have, I'm just going to say what they are and not the Japanese names. They have a sea bass option. They have a salmon option. They have a duck option. And they also have a tiger prawn with tofu option. So they do have, and those range, the lowest is $42. The sea bass is the highest of those, and it's $52. So that's more in line with other signature dining restaurants. Those aren't like, they were.
I'm just
still higher, but yeah,
it's higher because you have no option for an entree under $40. And even a California Grill, Citrico's, places like that, there are options on there that are lower than $40. So again,
The main thing was that if you're not going to get steak, you're pretty much limited to seafood unless you get the duck. So the other 3 options were all, tiger prawns, salmon, or sea bass. And so unless you're getting that, you got to get the steak.
And this is a place, there's not a lot of places I would trust with duck, because duck is really easy to screw up, and you end up with some gamey, greasy piece of garbage on your plate. This is a place I would trust to do duck and to do it right. So I just want to take a quick look. Go ahead and talk. Maybe Fiasco, throw something in here.
Yeah,
I was gonna say we met a few other we met some other people that were in the restaurant, and they were we were talking to them about what they had ordered, because none of them had ordered the Wagyu or any of the steaks. They had all gotten fish options, and so we got to see their meals. They were good portion sizes, but they had talked about we just decided to get each got a salmon, or one got a sea bass and a salmon, and then they got the the Wagyu sushi that I got, and they were like, well, that gave us a chance to try some Wagyu, but it just wasn't anything by comparison. I mean, while my sushi was very good, but I was like, yeah, I had both, and that like the sushi, the steak inside the sushi wasn't anything compared to having the steak on its own. It was phenomenal.
And I just wanted to do double check. This is not on the Disney dining plan. So this is not a 2-table service credit place. You cannot use the dining plan here. So you were going to say something, Fiasco.
Yeah, so I have a question that I think other people might have too that haven't been there like I haven't been there. When you went inside, this is in a theme park. This is obviously expensive and it's in a theme park. But like when I go up to California Grill and I'm not wearing a button-up, I'm not going to feel out of place. Were people dressed up here or were they in their theme park attire?
Theme park attire.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was theme park attire.
And, again, something I love about Disney is that with the exception of Victoria and Albert's, you can eat at any restaurant. They don't want you to have hats on and they don't want you to have, cutoffs on or things like that. There are some standards, but generally speaking, what you're walking around the park in, you can go into Monsieur Paul or you can go into this place and feel comfortable.
Yeah, and they do put up stuff. I mean, so if you go researching, it is a thing of where, because I know me and my friends one day we went to Monsieur Paul, and we had looked online and saw that there was a dress code, and so we brought dress clothes with us in a backpack so we could change into them. So before we went to the restaurant, we had to go into the bathrooms and change clothes and everything like that. So we were really frustrated, which we were frustrated anyway because we're like, I understand at California Grill, I've been turned away there before because I was wearing a tank top, and I had to go to my car and go get a shirt, which was just like a balled up shirt in my trunk. But they were like, we'd rather have that than your tank top. And I'm like, okay, this looks much worse, but that's fine. So I had to change into that. And I was like, I get it. It's in a hotel. It's in a deluxe resort. Like, I can understand it. But for a restaurant in the theme park, I'm like, this is ridiculous that we had to bring dress clothes to the park to change into for something in a theme park, and only to get in there and everyone's just wearing like tank tops and hats and flip-flops and everything else. And we're like, okay, so it is a dress code, but this is apparently not enforced in any way at Monsieur Paul. So I know there was some kind of
I think they do.
General, but
I don't think they allow hats and flip-flops. Or tank tops. I don't think you can do that in Monsieur. Most of the signature restaurants, that's pretty common. Is they don't want you in, flip-flops and tank tops and stuff. But, who knows how well enforced it is.
Yeah, there is actually, there's a couple restaurants that do have dress codes posted. I know off the top of my head, outside of Citricos there's one, and outside of Yachtsman Steakhouse there's one. So I know if I'm going to like the theme park and I'm also going to one of those restaurants, I keep a button up in my backpack. But they're also not very enforced. It's just the posting of that sign out front it makes me feel uncomfortable. So I feel like, okay, well, I should wear the button.
The one time you will find them enforce it is with hats. I've had that happen, not so much to me because I really don't wear them, but to people I've been with. I remember Corey getting nailed on that in Artist Point before it's made the switch over to Snow White. And he was like, I've been walking around all day with this hat on. My hair looks awful. And
right, yeah.
How Corey is with that.
Which we ran into that whenever we did our Snow White review for the when it changed over to character dining. I wore a hat, and no one said anything. Like, it went with the outfit that I was wearing, but I mean, there definitely were people in the comments that didn't like it or whatever, that were upset that I had worn a hat to dinner.
Yeah, but then there are people in the comments that are upset when Fiasco, one of the guys, are wearing a baseball cap in the studio.
Yeah,
and it's like, what is this, 1890?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I didn't care, but there are people who get offended. My dad would have been offended by something. My dad didn't like. He was not into that kind of thing. So I was like, I get it, but this is what this is what I was wearing. Like, I can't help. I'm at a theme park, so I don't know what to tell you.
Let's talk about the desserts a little bit. The least impressive part of this meal. Japanese style cheesecake was $16. A water cake with yuzu crumble, black grape, and blackberry sake was $12. And a castella cake with honey meringue, sesame brittle, and honey caramel, $16. We figured let's try it. We ordered all three. And we were chatting with some listeners who were in the restaurant. We invited them to join us. And we all tried it. And I think we were all in agreement. Ugh.
Yeah.
Desserts were not anything to write home about at all.
Yeah. I don't expect a lot out of Asian restaurants with desserts. There's not really a lot of famous East Asian desserts that I can name off the top of my head, so I don't think they're as big on that type of cuisine. So when we were reading them, they didn't seem that appealing, and then when we had them, it was very I mean, right now, all three of them could be sitting in front of me just for free, and I don't think I'd eat them because I just don't think they were worth eating. Like, it's not about even paying for it. It just wasn't worth eating. Like, it's not worth the calories.
That Japanese style cheesecake, I remember just being like crumbly and dry, and
it was
like
so dry.
It was so bad.
Even that water cake. I think the water cake might have been the Castella cake with the honey meringue and the brittle. That was the only one that I remember being like, okay, this is like passable. Like, this is okay, but I still would have been very disappointed with it. But compared to the other two, it was like light years ahead of them. But even that water cake, I was like, I have to try this, and it's like jello-y, but not quite that same texture. It's a different texture than anything I've ever had, but it was not my thing for sure.
Yeah, no, so. It just wasn't great. And I do believe they did take tables in Wonderland, if I'm not mistaken. They did accept.
I think they did, but even then, the desserts were very pricey. I mean, the water bread was the cheapest, and it's $14. So yeah. I was like, this. Now,
water cake was $12. Castella cake was $16, and the cheesecake was $16.
Oh, okay. Well, then it was 12. But yeah,
the desserts were not worth it. The desserts were definitely not worth it. Appetizer was good, but that Wagyu beef, phenomenal. That dish, those dishes alone are worth going to this restaurant.
Yeah.
And in terms of, people are always asking about special occasion restaurants, romantic restaurants. I think this is a hidden gem. Mm. And I also think it's fairly easy to get reservations because it didn't seem overly busy. It was hard to get them when it first opened. But again, at this price point and not taking the dining plan, that's a recipe for come on in. We got a table.
Which I was very surprised because there was a group in front of us whenever we went to check in that they were like essentially wanting to come eat in the restaurant, but they clearly didn't have a reservation, and they wouldn't take them because they're like, you need to have a reservation. And so for us to go inside and there literally be like 4 other tables, we were just I was like, wow, why didn't they just take them? Like, they could have just brought in more people, I guess, but they were very like, no, you need to have a reservation. But pretty much every day, like if I get on the app on My Disney Experience, there are reservations available for this restaurant. So it's not hard to get at all.
No, it's not. Now, I don't remember exactly what the grand total was, but I know it was over $400 for the two of us. Yeah. And that was with tables in Wonderland. And that also included the tip because I left an additional tip because I will say the service was fantastic. The young lady that was our server was just tremendous. I mean, everybody in the restaurant, so sweet and very accommodating. And, I was taking a lot of pictures and they were, offering to help me or move something. And I mean, it was really nice.
It was
really nice. But for a special occasion restaurant in particular, I think if you want to do something different, if you've done California Grill, if you've done Citrico's, Chico, Flying Fish, those places, and you want to do something different in Epcot, you cannot go wrong with Takumi-Tei. I think I'd want to do it a couple more times before I lay this down, but it may very well be the best restaurant at Walt Disney World right now. Maybe.
Yeah.
maybe.
And
I want to do it a couple more times.
Yeah, I mean, even with like my sushi was amazing. I enjoy my whole between that and California Grill, because California Grill is my favorite in general. It's because I like the appetizers, the entrees, and the desserts. However, the entree here just like really leveled the playing field. So and my appetizer was good, the desserts were not at all, but for just the entree to be so good that it is even on the same level as California Grill, where I like every element of that, it really just says a lot about how good the entrees were.
Yeah, and really well prepared. Well prepared. You clearly have talented chefs working here. I think the menu is very inventive. If the names put you off, steak, it's steak. And it's just really, really good steak. But it does require a little bit of an adventurous spirit when it comes to dining, and that's not always everybody's thing. And I'm not criticizing anybody for that. I'm very close to that myself. I like what I like, and I don't necessarily, even when I'm traveling, I don't step too far out of my comfort zone. What's the closest thing you have to steak and chicken? And that's pretty much what I'm going for. But scale of 1 to 10, Sean, what would you give it?
Oh God, I'm gonna say 9, just because how good the entree was and the eclectic options for people. Just dinged a little especially because of the desserts, which I don't care that much about, but the price point's really high. Even for nigiri, like 2 pieces of tuna nigiri is $13, and I'm like, that's a lot for like 2 pieces. Like that's very expensive.
Yeah, it is expensive. I'm gonna give it a 9.25, which I think is maybe the highest rating I've given a restaurant in a very long time. I rarely give over a 9, or even a 9 for that matter. But this was exceptional. This was an exceptional experience, between the decor, the atmosphere, the service, the food. I will overlook the desserts. I really won't even give them points off for the desserts.
Yeah, I don't need it.
Because the main course was that good. And like I said, with the service and everything else combined, it's expensive, but if you want to do that maybe once in a lifetime special meal, I think this is a good place to trust.
And I think also taking the desserts out of it is fair, because when you're somewhere else like California Grill or Citricos or whatever, you're limited to what desserts are available. You may not have a ticket to go in the park or whatever, but if you're already in Epcot, you ate at Takumi-Tei, and then you were like, we want dessert but not these, you can easily just go over to the French Pavilion and get ice cream, or you can go get something else that, it's unfair in general of me to ding it for desserts, because
right.
You're not limited to just getting dessert in this restaurant. You can go outside and into a bigger space, whereas you can't in resort
True.
restaurants. So in that way, I completely agree. The price is high. It was well worth it. And most people won't order all 3 desserts. We spent like $60 just on dessert. So your price can go down from there for sure, but it's well worth it for special occasions, or, this is our first time back to Disney in years or whatever, it's a great experience.
So there you have it. That's our review of Takumi-Tei at the Japan Pavilion in Epcot, and that will do it for this week's episode of the Disney Dining Show. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you again next week.